confirm that you are working around the clock, because literally before we went on, you were reading this decision by Judge Boasberg. He finds that the Trump administration may be held in contempt for their deportation flights, ignoring his order to turn those deportation flights to El Salvador around. Do you think this ruling, however, might be a moot point given the Supreme Court's decision on this case?
No, it's not moot. And Judge Boasberg goes to great pains to restate the precedent going back to 1967, Walker versus Birmingham, holding that you've got to comply with a court order even if they were in the wrong court, even if for some reason there's a change. But look, Judge Boasberg, who was a President Bush appointee when he originally went on the bench, and he was Justice Kavanaugh's roommate at Yale, will go down in history as a great judicial hero for what he's doing here, because he is trying to put up a huge stop sign against the lawlessness. He said, I issued an injunction for you to not let those planes go, or if they were in the air, to turn them around. They hadn't left yet, but you willfully, deliberately defied a court order. You can't do that. Even the President of the United States can't do that. The executive branch can't do it. The legislative branch can't do it. No citizen can do it. You cannot defy the order of a court. And he's saying, I'm going to give you one last chance, essentially, to purge the contempt, to bring the Trump administration in line with the law. So he's given them one last chance before he makes a final ruling on criminal contempt. And if I were them, I would get those people back immediately who were covered by his original injunction. This is a line-by-line, minute-by-minute recitation of the defiance and contempt of the administration.
There have also been calls to bring back to the United States Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland father who the administration has put out there that they mistakenly deported. He had a protection order preventing him from being sent back to El Salvador, and yet he was. I wonder what you make of the administration's argument that at this point, a court cannot determine U.S. foreign policy, and they can't tell the administration of a foreign government, in this case the president of El Salvador, what to do with an El Salvadoran citizen who's in his custody.
Well, look, the court ruled that this was a blatant, naked violation of due process. You can't sweep people up off the streets, whether it's a citizen or a non-citizen, put them on an airplane and send them back to whatever country, including a prison in El Salvador. There was a specific order from 2019 saying he could not be sent back to El Salvador because he was afraid of gang terror and violence against him. But in any event, the Supreme Court, 9-0, says, no, we don't ship people out of the country just on some executive decision. There's got to be due process for that. So, that is the bottom line reality of the situation. Everybody's got to come into compliance with the Constitution. The president, just like Congress, just like the courts themselves, operates within the constitutional structure.
I have to ask, because we heard a soundbite earlier this hour from Attorney General Pam Bondi citing evidence that Abrego Garcia is a member of MS-13. There was this dispute back and forth in court back in 2019. The Trump administration has not provided explicit evidence that he was a member of that gang, though she continues to say that there is intelligence. Tom Homan has said the same thing. There is intelligence. They're pointing to the Salvadoran government, saying that they have intelligence. As the ranking member on the Judiciary Committee, what can you do to compel the administration to provide that evidence to the American people?
Well, they should bring it to court. If they want to prosecute him, first comply with all the federal courts, including the U.S. Supreme Court, saying bring him back. Facilitate his return to the country. If you got charges against him for MS-13, or you got charges against him for Tren de Aragua, you got charges against him for maybe he was the person really behind the attack on the Capitol on January 6, 2021, and he was responsible for attacking 140 police officers and all those people going to jail who Trump pardoned. Whatever he's responsible for, charge him with it here, according to our constitutional system in a court of law, according him due process. The same due process rights, by the way, that Donald Trump got as a criminal defendant. And Donald Trump could not be airlifted to another country and just deported from the United States because he's a criminal convict. And this guy was never convicted of anything, has no criminal record at all.
I do also want to ask, because you said that the administration isn't following the Supreme Court's decision on this. Are you frustrated that the Supreme Court's decision didn't have the word effectuate in it, that they sort of softened it and only said facilitate? Because now, as you heard during our reporting, the administration is basically interpreting this to be a win for them on their arguments.
You know, I mean, I don't know that we've ever had any doctrinal parsing of the difference between effectuating someone's return to the country and facilitating someone's return to the country. In common sense parlance, we would all, I think, concur that it's the same thing. Perhaps they were trying to create the unanimous majority on the court. And look, the idea that the United States government suddenly is powerless in this situation and can't do anything about getting Abreu Garcia back to the country is just preposterous. El Salvador is our junior partner in this arrangement. We're paying them $6 million to hold people that we send over there, apparently. Now, we haven't been able to get the document yet, and we want to see exactly what the agreement says between U.S. and El Salvador. But the bottom line is they are our legal agent. So, of course, we could compel them to get back. I mean, if the Secretary of Homeland Security goes down there for photo ops and they decided to hold her, you don't think we could get her back just by telling El Salvador to release her? I mean, come on.
I have a number of questions about the politics of this, and the administration is leaning very far into believing that this is a winning issue for them. But I have to put that on hold, Congressman, because we do have some breaking news into CNN. The DOJ and the White House counsel are now reviewing the viability of sending U.S. criminals, deporting U.S. criminals to that El Salvadoran prison, something that President Trump floated during the visit by President Bukele on Monday, I believe it was. What's your reaction to hearing that? Is that an effective way to pursue law and order in the United States, as the president has said he wants to do?
In 1952, in the steel seizure case, the United States Supreme Court said the president gets his powers from only two places, either from the Constitution, and there's nothing in the Constitution that gives the president the power to do that, or from Congress. And Congress has never had a debate, much less an act of Congress that went to the president to be signed into law, stating that we are going to set up prisons in other people's countries or start exporting prisoners or deporting prisoners to other people's lands. Where does the president think he gets that powers? Gets that power? It doesn't make any sense. It would almost certainly violate the ban on cruel and unusual punishment under the Eighth Amendment if Congress wanted to do it, and we're the only ones who have the power to do it. If we said we're going to now start sending all of our prisoners over to Russia, there's a new friendly government for the Trump administration, could we really do that and remove them from the possibility of their families seeing them and from being in touch with their lawyers and getting to see their counsel? I mean, it implicates due process, the right to counsel, the ban on cruel and unusual punishment. But I think all of that is a distraction from Judge Boasberg's decision today, holding them in contempt. They should come into line with the law right now and say they're going to comply with the decision. He's giving them the chance to purge their contempt. They're going to listen to the Supreme Court, and they're going to facilitate the return of people who never should have been sent over there in the first place.
Congressman, tying this all together, we've seen repeated efforts with all of these cases by Donald Trump and the executive branch to exert its power as a stronger or perhaps more influential branch of the three co-equal branches of government. Is the only thing protecting that balance now a Supreme Court that leans conservative, that's proven in the past that it is willing to do away with precedent?
Well, I hope that we will have enough Republican friends in Congress to act with us to reassert congressional primacy over lawmaking. The president does not make laws. There seems to be some confusion about that. They understood it when Biden was president, when they went to court repeatedly to try to get the court to strike down, for example, his college loan forgiveness plans. They believed in judicial review then. Suddenly they don't believe in judicial review anymore. But yes, it is emphatically the province and the duty of the court to say what the law is. That's Marbury versus Madison in 1803. The idea that our colleagues are now talking about impeaching judges because they're impeding the Trump agenda is appalling. And there are more than 65 temporary restraining orders and preliminary injunctions that have been entered against this lawlessness. And Congress has got to stand up for the independence of the judiciary and for what the courts are doing, which is enforcing the Constitution, which is what protects the civil liberties and civil rights of all the people.
Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland, very much appreciate you joining us in person. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Of course.